I fix other people's computers for a living. Broken hard drives, corrupted files, viruses that shouldn't exist, but somehow do. 20 years in IT support, and I thought I'd seen every kind of digital disaster. Turns out, the worst crashes happen in real life. My name is Matt Russo, and I'm about to tell you how I discovered that my wife Tracy had been playing games with more than just her smartphone. It started on a Tuesday morning in our cramped kitchen in suburban Cleveland. Tracy was getting ready for work, scrolling through her phone with that secretive smile she'd been wearing for months. I used to think it was cute. Now it made my stomach twist. "Coffee's ready," I said, pouring her usual cup with 2 sugars. She barely looked up. "Thanks, babe. Running late for a meeting." Tracy worked in HR at a mid-sized insurance company downtown. Decent job, decent pay, but lately she'd been staying late more often, coming home with stories about office drama that seemed rehearsed. Her phone never left her side anymore. "Which meeting?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just some boring compliance thing. You wouldn't be interested." That phrase had become her favorite lately. You wouldn't be interested. Like I was some basement-dwelling tech support stereotype who couldn't understand the complexities of her sophisticated corporate world. I watched her grab her purse and head for the door. Something felt wrong. Call it intuition, call it paranoia, but after 15 years of marriage, you develop a sixth sense about these things. "Tracy, wait." She turned, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? It was gone before I could be sure. "What is it, Matt? I really need to go." "Are we okay? I mean, us. We barely talk anymore." She walked back and kissed my cheek, but it felt mechanical. "We're fine, honey. Just stressed with work. Things will settle down soon." After she left, I sat in our kitchen staring at the coffee I'd poured for myself. The house felt different lately, like I was living with a stranger who happened to look like my wife. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Dev, who worked at the same IT company. "Emergency call at the gym on 5th Street. Owner's system crashed. Want to take it?" I grabbed my toolbox and headed out. The gym turned out to be one of those trendy fitness places with motivational posters and protein shake bars. The owner introduced himself as Eric Bell, a guy in his late 30s with the kind of muscles that screamed, "I live here." "Thanks for coming so fast," Eric said, leading me to his office. My computer just went crazy. Blue screen, then nothing. I set up my equipment and started diagnosing the problem. Standard hard drive failure, nothing complicated. But while I worked, Eric kept hovering, making small talk that felt forced. "You married?" he asked. 15 years, I replied, not looking up from the screen. "Lucky guy. My girlfriend's been giving me grief about commitment lately." Something in his tone made me glance up. "Girlfriend?" "Yeah, Tracy. Works in insurance downtown. Real firecracker, that one." The screwdriver slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor. Eric didn't seem to notice my reaction. He kept talking about Tracy like she was some prize he'd won. How smart she was, how funny, how she understood him in ways other women didn't. I finished the repair in silence, my hands moving on autopilot while my mind raced. When Eric paid me, he mentioned something about taking Tracy to dinner at that new steakhouse on the west side, the same steakhouse where Tracy had told me she was having a work dinner last Friday. I drove home in a daze, Eric's words echoing in my head. There had to be an explanation. Maybe he was talking about a different Tracy. Cleveland was a big city, right? But deep down, I already knew the truth. That evening, Tracy came home with takeout from our usual Chinese place. She seemed more relaxed than she'd been in weeks, almost cheerful. "How was your day?" she asked, unpacking the containers. "Interesting," I said. "Fixed a computer at a gym downtown. Owner was a real talker." I watched her face carefully, but she showed no reaction. "That's nice, honey. Pass the soy sauce?" We ate in silence, the television filling the awkward space between us. Tracy kept checking her phone, typing quick responses with that same secretive smile. After dinner, she announced she was taking a bath. "Long day," she explained, disappearing upstairs with her phone. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, trying to process what I'd learned. My wife of 15 years was having an affair with a gym owner who looked like he could bench press my car. But I needed proof. Real proof. Not just the word of some muscle-bound stranger. That's when I remembered something from my IT training. People think deleting messages makes them disappear forever, but digital footprints are harder to erase than most realize. Tracy had left her laptop on the kitchen counter, still logged into her email. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I shouldn't have looked. I knew it was wrong even as I opened the browser and navigated to her accounts. But sometimes you reach a point where doing the right thing feels less important than knowing the truth. The first few emails were boring work stuff. Meeting schedules, policy updates, the usual corporate nonsense. Then I found a folder labeled personal that she'd tried to hide. My hands shook as I opened the first message. "Eric, can't wait to see you tonight. Matt thinks I'm at book club. This is so exciting. T." The timestamp showed last Tuesday, the night she'd come home late with wine on her breath, claiming the book club had gone longer than expected. I scrolled through more messages, each one feeling like a punch to the gut. Planning secret meetings, discussing how to avoid getting caught, laughing about how clueless I was. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It was the tone of the messages. Tracy wasn't just cheating on me, she was mocking me, calling me boring, predictable, saying things like, "He's so easy to fool," and Matt would never suspect anything. One message made me particularly sick. He actually offered to fix your computer for free if you ever need it. Isn't that sweet? My husband, the helpful little tech guy. Sometimes I feel bad for him, but then I remember how much more alive I feel with you. T. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, trying to breathe normally. 15 years of marriage, and this was what it had come to. My wife was not only betraying me, but treating me like some pathetic joke she shared with her boyfriend. The sound of water draining upstairs told me Tracy's bath was over. I quickly returned to the couch, grabbing the remote and pretending to watch television. She came downstairs in her robe, hair wrapped in a towel, looking more beautiful than she had in months. Funny how guilt could make someone glow. "I'm exhausted," she announced. "Think I'll head to bed early." "Good idea," I managed to say. She kissed the top of my head before heading upstairs. "Love you, Matt." "Love you too." But as I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, I realized something had fundamentally changed inside me. The hurt was still there, sharp and fresh, but underneath it was something else. Something colder and more calculating. If Tracy wanted to play games, I could play games too. And after 20 years of fixing other people's problems, I was pretty good at finding creative solutions. I spent the rest of the night planning. The next morning, Tracy left for work with her usual rushed goodbye. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then called in sick to my own job. I had research to do. First stop was the public library downtown. I needed to use a computer that couldn't be traced back to me, just in case things got complicated later. The librarian, a sweet elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, set me up at a terminal in the back corner. I started with social media. Tracy had always been careful about her Facebook posts, but people get sloppy when they think they're safe. I created a fake account and started digging through her friends list. Eric Bell's profile was public, probably for business reasons. Lots of gym photos, motivational quotes, and pictures of expensive dinners at restaurants I couldn't afford. But buried in the comments section of his posts, I found gold. Tracy had been liking and commenting on his photos for months, using flirty language that made my skin crawl. "Looking good," with heart emojis on his workout selfies. Wish I was there. on photos of fancy restaurants. But the real treasure was in the tagged photos. Other people had posted pictures from various events around the city, and if you looked carefully, you could spot Tracy and Eric together in the background. A charity fundraiser 3 months ago, a food truck festival last weekend, always standing just a little too close, always when I thought she was somewhere else. I screenshotted everything, saving the images to a flash drive. Next, I decided to visit some of the places they'd been together. The steakhouse Eric had mentioned was my first stop. I showed Tracy's photo to the hostess, claiming I was planning a surprise anniversary dinner and wanted to make sure we hadn't been there recently. "Oh, yes," the hostess smiled. "She was here Friday night with that handsome man. They seemed very happy together. Anniversary dinner." "Something like that," I replied. The restaurant had security cameras. I made a mental note to come back later with a story about a lost wallet and see if I could get a look at the footage. My phone rang as I was walking back to my car. Dev's name appeared on the screen. "Hey, man," I answered. "Matt, where are you? Johnson's looking for you. Something about the Henderson account?" I'd completely forgotten about work. "Tell him I'm handling an emergency repair. I'll be in tomorrow." "Everything okay? You sound weird." Dev and I had been friends since college. He was one of the few people who knew me well enough to detect when something was wrong. "Can you meet me for lunch?" I asked. "I need to talk to someone." We met at our usual spot, a diner called Murphy's that served coffee strong enough to wake the deceased. Dev took one look at my face and ordered us both double cheeseburgers. "Okay," he said, leaning across the table. "What's going on?" I told him everything. The gym repair, Eric's casual mention of Tracy, the emails I'd found, the evidence I'd been gathering all morning. Dev listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each detail. "Holy cow, Matt," he said when I finished. "I'm so sorry, man." "I need to know how deep this goes," I continued, "and I need to decide what to do about it." Dev stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "You could confront her directly. Maybe there's an explanation." "What explanation could there be for months of secret meetings and emails calling me a pathetic joke?" "Fair point." Dev paused. "Or you could talk to a lawyer, document everything, file for divorce, take half of everything." I shook my head. "That's not enough." "What do you mean?" I stared out the window at the parking lot, watching normal people live their normal lives. "She's been humiliating me for months, Dev, making me look like a fool while she and her boyfriend laugh about how easy I am to manipulate. A simple divorce doesn't balance those scales." Dev looked uncomfortable. "Matt, you're scaring me a little. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking about justice. Real justice. The kind that makes people understand there are consequences for treating others like garbage." "Revenge, you mean?" "I prefer to think of it as education." Dev was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he sighed. "What do you need me to do?" That afternoon, Dev and I drove to Eric's gym. I wanted to get a better sense of the man who'd been sharing my wife. We pretended to be interested in membership, letting Eric give us the full tour. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, muscular, confident in that effortless way that comes from never doubting yourself. He spoke about fitness and nutrition like he was revealing the secrets of the universe, and I could see why Tracy might find him appealing. But I also noticed other things. The way he checked his phone constantly, probably waiting for messages from Tracy. How he name-dropped expensive restaurants and talked about his car like it was a religious artifact. The slightly desperate edge to his sales pitch that suggested the gym wasn't doing as well as he pretended. Most importantly, I noticed the security system. Cameras everywhere, motion sensors, the works. But it was an older setup, the kind I'd installed and serviced dozens of times. I knew its weaknesses. "So what do you think?" Eric asked as we wrapped up the tour. "Impressive," I said. "Really impressive. We'll definitely consider it." On the way out, I palmed one of his business cards from the front desk. It had his personal cell phone number printed at the bottom. That evening, Tracy came home in an unusually good mood. She'd brought Chinese takeout again, but this time she'd also picked up a bottle of wine. "What's the occasion?" I asked. "Do I need an occasion to want to spend time with my husband?" She was trying too hard, and we both knew it. But I played along, opening the wine and setting the table like nothing had changed. Over dinner, she told me about her day. A boring meeting about insurance policies, trouble with the copy machine, gossip about a coworker who'd been caught padding his expense reports. All of it delivered with the practiced ease of someone who'd been lying for months. "How about you?" she asked. "How was the sick day?" "Restful," I said. Gave me time to think about things. "What kind of things?" I met her eyes across the table. "Our marriage, where we're going, whether we're both happy." For just a moment her mask slipped. I saw fear there, and guilt, and something that might have been relief. "Are you happy, Matt?" she asked quietly. It was a loaded question. She was probably hoping I'd say no, that I'd give her an excuse to justify what she'd been doing. Poor Tracy, trapped in a loveless marriage with boring Matt. Instead, I smiled. "I'm learning to find happiness in unexpected places." She relaxed, apparently satisfied with my cryptic answer. We finished dinner making small talk about weekend plans and household repairs that needed attention. After she went to bed, I sat in my home office and began planning in earnest. I opened a notebook and started writing down everything I knew, everything I'd discovered, and everything I wanted to accomplish. Tracy thought I was predictable. She thought I was boring and passive, someone who would never fight back even if I found out about her betrayal. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. But I needed more than just evidence of the affair. I needed leverage. Something that would make the revelation hurt as much as possible. Something that would destroy the comfortable little fantasy world she'd built with Eric. I picked up my phone and scrolled through Tracy's contact list, which I'd memorized from her laptop, her sister Jennifer, her mother, her best friend Kelsey from work, all the people whose opinions mattered to her, whose respect she craved. Then I had an idea, a wonderful, terrible idea. Tracy wasn't just having an affair. She was part of a social circle, a group of women who met regularly for drinks and gossip. They called themselves the Wine Wednesday Crew, and from what I'd observed, they spent most of their time judging other people's relationships and personal choices. What if that group knew about the affair? What if they were helping her cover it up, or even encouraging it? I opened Tracy's laptop again and dove deeper into her email accounts. This time, I searched for messages to and from her female friends. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The emails between Tracy and her friends painted a picture of casual cruelty that made my stomach turn. They weren't just aware of her affair with Eric, they were actively helping her plan it. Kelsey from her office had provided alibis, telling me directly that Tracy was working late when she was actually out with Eric. Jennifer, Tracy's sister, had covered for weekend trips by claiming they were visiting their mother. Even their mutual friend Alana had gotten involved, letting Tracy use her apartment for afternoon meetings when Eric's place wasn't available. But the worst part was the tone of their conversations. They talked about me like I was some pathetic creature deserving of pity at best, mockery at worst. From Kelsey. "How can you stand going home to that every night? Matt's sweet, but he's so ordinary, like beige wallpaper." From Jennifer. "At least he's stable, but girl, you deserve passion. You deserve someone who makes you feel alive." From Alana. "Just be careful. Guys like Matt can surprise you, still waters and all that." Tracy's responses were the most painful to read. "He's completely clueless. I could probably bring Eric home for dinner and Matt would just offer to fix his computer. Sometimes I wonder what I ever saw in him." I printed everything, building a file that would have made a private investigator proud. Bank statements showing charges at restaurants and hotels. Credit card records for lingerie purchases I'd never seen. Phone logs showing hundreds of calls and texts to Eric's number. The evidence was overwhelming, But it still wasn't enough. I didn't just want to expose Tracy's affair. I wanted to dismantle the entire social structure that had enabled it. Over the next few days, I began what I privately called reconnaissance missions. I followed Tracy to her lunch meetings with Kelsey, sitting in my car across the street while they giggled over salads and planned their next deception. I tracked Jennifer to her yoga class, where she spent more time gossiping than stretching. I even attended one of Alana's book club meetings, pretending to be interested in joining. Each observation added another piece to the puzzle. These women weren't just Tracy's friends. They were co-conspirators in a lifestyle of casual dishonesty. They cheated on diets, lied to their husbands about spending, and treated deception like a competitive sport. But they all had secrets of their own. Kelsey was skimming money from her office's petty cash fund to pay for her expensive lunches. Jennifer was having her own affair with her personal trainer. Alana was secretly taking anxiety medication while pretending to be the group's Zen wellness expert. I documented everything, building individual files on each woman. If they wanted to play games with other people's lives, they needed to understand that everyone was vulnerable. The breakthrough came on a Thursday evening. Tracy announced she was going to Kelsey's house for their weekly wine night, but I knew from monitoring Kelsey's social media that she was out of town visiting her mother. I followed Tracy's car through downtown Cleveland, staying far enough back to avoid detection. She drove to Eric's gym, but instead of going inside, she met him in the parking lot. They got into his car together and drove to a hotel on the outskirts of the city. I parked across the street and waited. 2 hours later, they emerged, looking disheveled and satisfied. Eric kissed her goodbye in full view of anyone who might be watching, his hands roaming over her body like he owned it. That night, Tracy came home and told me about the wonderful evening she'd had with Kelsey. How they'd watched romantic movies and talked about their hopes and dreams. She even showed me a text message Kelsey had supposedly sent, thanking her for being such a good friend. The text was fake, of course, probably sent from a burner phone or a second device. But Tracy delivered the lie with such practiced ease that I almost believed it myself. "You're lucky to have such good friends," I said. "I really am," she agreed. "I don't know what I'd do without them." As she headed upstairs to shower off the evidence of her evening with Eric, I made a decision. The time for passive observation was over. It was time to start the real game. I began with small moves, subtle disruptions that would create cracks in their carefully constructed facade. I sent anonymous tips to Kelsey's supervisor about irregularities in the petty cash fund. I left printouts of Jennifer's credit card statements in places where her husband might find them. I signed Alana up for addiction recovery newsletters using her work email address. None of these actions were dramatic enough to cause immediate chaos, but they planted seeds of doubt and suspicion. Kelsey started getting nervous about office audits. Jennifer's husband began asking questions about her gym membership expenses. Alana became paranoid about her privacy settings on social media. Meanwhile, I continued gathering evidence against Tracy and Eric. I installed a GPS tracker on Tracy's car, the kind used by parents to monitor teenage drivers. I set up a fake social media account and befriended several of Eric's gym clients, learning about his business problems and personal insecurities. The gym was struggling financially. Eric had taken out several loans to keep it operating, and he was behind on payments to multiple creditors. His expensive lifestyle was mostly funded by credit cards and false optimism. More importantly, I discovered that Eric had a pattern of getting involved with married women. Tracy wasn't his first affair, just his most recent. He seemed to enjoy the thrill of stealing someone else's wife, the challenge of convincing women to betray their commitments. This information gave me leverage I hadn't expected. Eric wasn't just a home wrecker, he was a serial home wrecker with financial problems and a reputation to protect. I started planning the next phase of my campaign. It wasn't enough to expose the affair. I needed to destroy the foundation of lies and manipulation that made it possible. But first, I needed to test my theory about how far Tracy was willing to go to protect her secret. I decided to stage a small crisis and see how she would react. On Friday morning, I called Tracy at work with panic in my voice. "Tracy, thank goodness you answered. I need your help." "Matt, what's wrong? You sound terrible." "I think someone's been using our credit cards. There are charges I don't recognize, restaurants and hotels we've never been to. I'm at the bank now, but they want to speak with both of us." There was a long pause. When Tracy spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. "What kind of charges?" "Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, even some clothing stores. The bank thinks someone cloned our cards. Can you leave work early? They want us both here to verify which charges are legitimate." Another pause. I could practically hear her mind racing, trying to figure out which expenses might be traceable to her affair. I can't leave right now, Matt. We have a huge presentation this afternoon. Can't you handle it yourself?" They specifically said they need both cardholders present. "Tracy, this is serious. Someone has stolen thousands of dollars from us." Okay. Let me see what I can do. Which bank branch are you at?" I gave her the address of a branch across town from her office, far enough away that she'd have to make a real commitment to meet me there. "I'll try to be there in an hour," she said. "But Matt, are you sure about this? Maybe you're just forgetting some purchases." "I'm sure, Tracy. I keep track of our expenses, remember? I know what we've spent and where." After hanging up, I drove to the bank and waited in the parking lot. I wanted to see if Tracy would actually show up, or if she'd find an excuse to avoid a conversation that might expose her spending. An hour passed. Then 2 hours. Finally, my phone rang. "Matt, I'm so sorry. The presentation ran long, and now I have to deal with a client emergency. Did you get everything sorted out with the bank?" "They wouldn't talk to me without you there," I lied. "I'll have to come back Monday with you." "Monday's really busy too. Maybe we should just monitor the accounts for a few days, see if any new charges appear?" She was stalling, hoping the problem would disappear on its own. It confirmed what I'd suspected. Tracy was so deep in her web of lies that she couldn't risk any scrutiny of our finances. "Sure," I said. "We'll keep an eye on things." That evening, Tracy came home with flowers and my favorite takeout from the Italian place downtown. She was trying to make up for abandoning me during what she thought was a financial crisis. "I felt terrible about today," she said, arranging the flowers in a vase. "I should have been there to help you." "It's okay. Work comes first, right?" She looked at me sharply, trying to determine if there was sarcasm in my voice. I kept my expression neutral. "Not always," she said. "You're more important than any job." It was a nice sentiment, but her actions that day had proven otherwise. When forced to choose between protecting her secret and supporting her husband, she'd chosen the secret without hesitation. We ate dinner while Tracy told me elaborate stories about her presentation and the client emergency that had kept her at the office. She was a gifted liar. I had to give her credit for that. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed every word. After dinner, she suggested we watch a movie together. She even let me pick, something she rarely did anymore. We settled on an old thriller, one of those films where the husband slowly realizes his wife is plotting against him. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "This is ridiculous," Tracy said during a scene where the wife stages a burglary to cover her tracks. "No one would go to such elaborate lengths just to hide an affair." "You'd be surprised what people are capable of when they're desperate," I replied. She glanced at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Do you really think someone would destroy their entire life just to avoid getting caught?" "Some people would rather burn everything down than admit they were wrong." We finished the movie in silence. Tracy went to bed early, claiming exhaustion from her stressful day. I stayed downstairs, ostensibly to clean up, but really to finalize my plans for the next phase. The test had been successful. Tracy was vulnerable, paranoid, and willing to sacrifice our relationship to protect her secret. She'd also demonstrated that she was capable of elaborate deception under pressure. Now it was time to apply real pressure. I opened my laptop and began composing a series of emails. Anonymous messages to Eric's business partners, questioning his financial stability. Tips to local gossip bloggers about a married woman and a gym owner who'd been seen together around town. Carefully worded suggestions to Tracy's supervisor about potential conflicts of interest in her department. None of these messages contained direct accusations or specific names. They were just seeds of doubt, planted in fertile ground and left to grow. But my masterpiece was a fake social media profile I'd been developing for weeks. Cleveland Confidential was supposed to be a local gossip account that exposed the secret lives of suburban residents. I'd been posting minor scandals about people Tracy didn't know, building credibility and a small following. Now I was ready to turn the spotlight on Tracy's social circle. The first post went live at midnight. Wine Wednesday Warriors, when book clubs become alibis and girls' nights become something else entirely. Stay tuned for details about Cleveland's most dedicated liars. I included no names or specific details, but anyone familiar with Tracy's friend group would recognize the reference. The post was designed to create paranoia and suspicion within their ranks. By morning, it had been shared dozens of times and generated hundreds of comments from people speculating about which local women might be involved. Tracy's phone started buzzing early Saturday morning. Panicked calls from Kelsey, Jennifer, and Alana, all wondering if they'd seen the mysterious post and whether it might be about them. I pretended to sleep while Tracy took the calls in our bedroom, her voice getting more stressed with each conversation. "I'm sure it's not about us," she kept saying. "We haven't done anything wrong." But her tone suggested she wasn't convinced. When she finally came downstairs, she looked exhausted, despite having just woken up. "Everything okay?" I asked innocently. "Just some drama with the girls. Someone's been posting gossip online about people in our neighborhood." "What kind of gossip?" "Nothing important. Just silly rumors about affairs and stuff like that." She was watching my reaction carefully, probably trying to gauge whether I'd seen the post or made any connections. "Sounds like someone has too much time on their hands," I said. "Exactly. People should mind their own business." The irony of that statement, coming from someone who spent her free time gossiping about neighbors and co-workers, was almost too much to bear. But I just nodded and poured myself another cup of coffee. The real fun was about to begin. By Sunday evening, the paranoia had spread through Tracy's friend group like a virus. The Cleveland Confidential post had generated so much speculation that local social media groups were buzzing with theories about which women might be involved in the alleged deception network. Tracy spent most of the weekend on the phone with her friends, trying to manage the crisis. They were all convinced that someone in their social circle had betrayed them, sharing private information with the mysterious gossip account. "Maybe it's someone from work," Kelsey suggested during one call I overheard. "Someone who's jealous of our friendship." "Or maybe it's one of our husbands," Jennifer added. "They always resent our girls' nights." The accusation stung, even though it was partially true. But I maintained my innocent facade, occasionally asking Tracy if everything was all right and offering to help in any way I could. "It's nothing you need to worry about," she assured me. "Just some petty drama that will blow over soon." But it wasn't blowing over. I made sure of that. On Monday, I posted a follow-up message from Cleveland Confidential. Update on wine, Wednesday Warriors. Sources confirm multiple married women involved in elaborate deception network. Alibis provided for activities husbands would definitely not approve of. Full details coming soon. This post was more specific, mentioning details that only someone with inside knowledge could know. The reaction was immediate and intense. Tracy's phone rang constantly. Her friends were no longer just worried, they were terrified. Someone clearly had access to private information about their activities, and they couldn't figure out who it might be. The stress was taking a visible toll on Tracy. She looked exhausted, jumped at unexpected sounds, and checked her phone obsessively. Her carefully maintained facade was starting to crack. "Maybe you should take a break from social media for a while," I suggested over dinner Monday night. "It's not that simple, Matt. Someone is trying to hurt me and my friends. I can't just ignore it." "Hurt you how? If you're not doing anything wrong, what do you have to worry about?" She stared at me across the table, and for a moment I thought she might confess everything. Instead, she looked away. "You wouldn't understand. It's complicated. Try me. I'm pretty good at solving complicated problems. This isn't a computer you can fix, Matt. This is real life, with real consequences." "What consequences?" "Tracy, you're scaring me. What exactly are you afraid of?" But she wouldn't answer. She finished her dinner in silence and spent the evening locked in our bedroom, whispering frantically into her phone. On Tuesday, I escalated the pressure. I posted photos on Cleveland Confidential that I'd taken during my surveillance missions. Nothing explicit or obviously incriminating, just images of Tracy and her friends in restaurants and locations that contradicted the stories they'd told their families. Tracy having lunch with Kelsey on a day she'd claimed to be sick. Jennifer at an expensive spa when she was supposed to be visiting her mother. Alana meeting with a man who definitely wasn't her husband at a downtown coffee shop. Each photo was accompanied by a cryptic caption that hinted at deeper secrets without making specific accusations. The response was explosive. The photos were shared hundreds of times, and people began identifying the women involved. Comments poured in from neighbors, co-workers, and acquaintances, all speculating about what the images might reveal. Tracy's world was collapsing, but she still hadn't figured out who was behind the attacks. That changed on Wednesday morning. I was in my home office when I heard Tracy's car pull into the driveway much earlier than usual. She burst through the front door, her face flushed with anger and fear. "Matt, we need to talk. Now." I looked up from my computer with what I hoped was a confused expression. "What's wrong? Shouldn't you be at work?" "Someone is stalking me, Matt, taking pictures, posting them online, trying to destroy my life." "What are you talking about?" She showed me her phone, displaying the Cleveland Confidential posts. Someone has been following me and my friends, documenting our activities, making it look like we're doing something wrong." I studied the images with apparent concern. "These are definitely you. When were they taken?" "That's not the point. The point is that someone is harassing us, and I think it might be connected to your computer repair business." "My business? How?" "Think about it, Matt. You have access to people's computers, their personal information, their passwords. Maybe one of your clients is using that information to spy on their spouse, and we got caught up in it accidentally." It was a creative theory, I had to admit. Tracy was trying to find an explanation that didn't involve her own secrets being exposed. "That's a serious accusation," I said. "Are you sure these photos don't show anything questionable?" "Of course I'm sure. We were just having lunch, going shopping, normal friend activities. But this person is making it look suspicious by posting them with those weird captions. Maybe you should call the police." "And tell them what? That someone took pictures of us in public places? That's not illegal, Matt." She was right, of course. Everything I'd done was technically legal, just morally questionable. But then again, so was adultery. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "I want you to use your computer skills to find out who's behind this. Can you trace the account, figure out their real identity?" It was a delicious irony. Tracy was asking me to investigate myself. "I can try," I said, "but these anonymous accounts are usually pretty well protected. It might take some time." "Please, Matt, I'm really scared. What if this person escalates? What if they start making up stories about us, spreading lies?" "Are you worried about anything specific?" She hesitated, and I could see her internal struggle. How much could she tell me without revealing her own secrets? I'm worried about my reputation, she said finally. My job, my friendships, everything I've worked for. This person could destroy all of that with lies and fake evidence. Then maybe you should be completely honest with me, I suggested. If there's anything in your life that could be misinterpreted or taken out of context, now would be a good time to mention it. Another long pause. Tracy was clearly tempted to confess, to ask for my help in managing the crisis, but her commitment to the lie was stronger than her fear. There's nothing to tell, she said. I just want this nightmare to end. Okay. I'll see what I can find out about the account. She kissed my cheek gratefully. Thank you, Matt. I knew I could count on you. After she left for work, I sat in my office and laughed until my sides hurt. Tracy was so deep in her deception that she'd asked her betrayed husband to help cover up her betrayal. But the game was far from over. In fact, it was just getting started. That evening, I posted the most damaging content yet on Cleveland Confidential. Screenshots of text messages between Tracy and Eric, with names blacked out but enough context visible to make their relationship obvious. Exclusive. Wine Wednesday. Warrior caught in steamy affair with local gym owner. Husband completely clueless while wife and friends mock him behind his back. Full evidence dump coming Friday. The post went viral within hours. Tracy's phone exploded with calls and messages from friends, family, and co-workers. The screenshots were being analyzed and shared across multiple social media platforms. By Thursday morning, people had identified Eric's gym from background details in the photos. His business phone was ringing constantly with angry calls from people demanding to know if the rumors were true. Tracy called in sick to work, claiming she was too upset to function. She spent the day in our bedroom with the curtains drawn, emerging only to pace around the house and check her phone obsessively. Any luck tracing that account? She asked me hopefully. Still working on it, I replied. But Tracy, I have to ask, are those text messages real? What text messages? I showed her the latest post. Her face went white as she read the screenshots of her own words. I don't know where those came from. They could be fake, photoshopped or something. They look pretty authentic to me. And that phone number, isn't that yours? Matt, you can't believe this garbage. Someone is trying to frame me, make it look like I'm having an affair. Are you having an affair? The question hung in the air between us like a loaded weapon. Tracy's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment I thought she might finally tell the truth. Instead, she threw her arms around me and sobbed into my chest. How can you even ask me that? After 15 years of marriage, how can you doubt me? Because the evidence is pretty convincing, Tracy. And because you've been acting strange for months. I've been acting strange because I've been stressed about work, about us, about everything. But I would never cheat on you, Matt. Never. She was still lying, even with overwhelming evidence staring her in the face. The commitment to deception was almost admirable in its completeness. Okay, I said, stroking her hair. I believe you. But we both knew I didn't. Friday morning arrived with a sense of anticipation that made my hands shake. I'd promised a full evidence dump on Cleveland Confidential, and I intended to deliver. At exactly noon, I posted everything. Bank records showing hotel charges and expensive dinners, credit card statements for lingerie and gifts, phone logs documenting hundreds of calls and texts between Tracy and Eric, email screenshots showing the conspiracy between Tracy and her friends, photos of Tracy and Eric together in compromising situations. But the centerpiece was a video I'd recorded outside the hotel where they'd met. Clear footage of Tracy and Eric kissing passionately in the parking lot, her wedding ring clearly visible as her hands roamed over his body. The post was titled, Wine Wednesday Warriors Exposed, the complete truth about Cleveland's most dedicated cheaters. Within an hour, it had been shared over 1,000 times. Tracy's phone stopped ringing because people had stopped calling and started commenting directly on the post itself. The comments were brutal. Former friends expressing shock and betrayal, co-workers questioning her integrity, neighbors sharing their own suspicions and observations. But the most devastating comments came from Eric's other victims. Women who recognized him from the photos and shared their own stories of being seduced and abandoned. Wives who'd discovered their own husbands' affairs with members of Tracy's friend group. The Wine Wednesday warriors hadn't just been covering for Tracy's affair. They'd been enabling a network of deception that had destroyed multiple families. Tracy found me in my office around 3 o'clock, her face streaked with tears and her hands shaking. "It's over," she whispered. "Everything is over." "I know," I replied. She looked at me with confusion. "You know?" "I've known for months, Tracy. About Eric, about your friends, about all of it." The truth hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, gripping the doorframe for support. You did this. The account, the photos, everything. It was you. It was me. But why? Why didn't you just confront me? Why didn't you ask for a divorce?" I turned to face her fully, and she must have seen something in my expression that frightened her, because she took another step back. Because a divorce wouldn't have been justice, Tracy. A divorce would have let you walk away with half of everything and your reputation intact. You would have gotten to play the victim, the woman trapped in a loveless marriage who found true love elsewhere. "Matt, please." "But this? This is real consequences. This is what happens when you treat people like they're disposable, when you mock and humiliate someone who trusted you completely." She was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her entire body. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." "Yes, you did. You meant for it to go exactly as far as it went. The only thing you didn't plan for was getting caught." "What happens now?" I looked at my wife of 15 years, this woman who'd shared my bed while planning my humiliation, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Now? Now you get to experience what it feels like when your entire world collapses and everyone you trusted abandons you. Now you get to start over with nothing but the reputation you've earned. And us? What about our marriage?" "There is no us, Tracy. There hasn't been for months. You made sure of that." She stood in my doorway for a long moment, perhaps waiting for me to show mercy or offer forgiveness. When it became clear that neither was coming, she turned and walked away. I heard her packing upstairs, heard her car start in the driveway, heard the silence that filled the house after she was gone. Then I poured myself a drink and watched the comments continue to pour in on Cleveland Confidential. Justice, I reflected, was a beautiful thing.